of speaking with the beautiful Andrea Lewis,
Thank you.
iconic actress, creator, producer, um, just all around icon that I have admired for a long time.
Thank
And
you.
your work is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Your work has inspired me um, personally as a creative, just the representation that you have given over the years and the voice that you've given to other people is phenomenal and something that, I aspire, Queen, okay? I aspire.
Thank you.
Um, and I really want to get to the core of, how did you know that this was going to be your path in life? Like, how did you know that you wanted to act or, be on TV and film?
Mhm.
How did this come to you?
Um, well, one, I was just lucky. I was really fortunate that my mom was approached by a casting director in a mall when I was a toddler. And so that's how I started in acting, right? Like it was like print and commercials and like things that you would do as like a little kid. But then I kept progressing. And and so I guess for me, it was always a little bit like chicken or the egg, because I was always like an entertainment baby. Like I loved performance and storytelling and just art. I really liked art as a
Yeah.
kid. And so even though I was technically in the business, I also was naturally attracted to those things. So it just kind of yeah, I was placed very early in the space that I would have liked. And I think more so the navigating that I had to do was more in deciding what kind of creative you are. Because, just because you're acting, especially as a child, that doesn't mean necessarily you want to act for the rest of your life. It definitely doesn't mean you want to produce, or it doesn't mean you want to direct or anything like that. You may just be like, I really like this, and that's about it. Or you may be like, I'm inspired by the clothing or the food or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, I never really had another vision for myself. So I think that's kind of where sometimes I like compare it to almost like an athlete. Like a lot of professional athletes, they started all their life, like they were doing it as a child, and they just kept doing it at a higher and a higher level. In my experience, it's kind of the same thing. I got to start as a kid, but I didn't have another goal. I didn't have another vision. My only goal was like, this is basically what I want to do. And I just have kept trying to figure out what it looked like for me, what it meant for me. And then I think maybe when I was like 18, maybe even 16, 17, 18, those teenage years, the kind of the end of your teenage years when you're um, kind of solidifying who you are. It's not fully there, but it's almost like it's in grasp. But it's not like you don't know how to quite get to it, but you can picture it.
Hmm.
Those years is when I remember always feeling almost more my most frustrated, because you're like, you kind of want to become an adult. You're like, you can see what you want to do, but you just have no idea what that means or what it looks like or how the industry is going to change in many
Yeah.
ways. And so I think the blessing for me was in social media and the online space, because sure, I came from a TV and film world, but I didn't really get a chance to like create. It wasn't until I kind of went online that I started to become a creator and
Mm.
kind of figure out what that looks like, or why I'm doing what I'm doing, or what makes me laugh, or what interests me, or what inspires me, what audience I even want to make things for. Because being a Black girl on TV, so often people constantly tell you like, Black female audience isn't big enough,
Mm.
it's too
Mm.
niche, it's not important enough, it's too, why don't you widen your lens, all of those kinds of things. And I just
Yeah, all too
didn't care.
familiar.
Yeah, it's like and truthfully, I honestly just didn't care. I never believed the statistics in that way. Like I just never believed somebody's perspective. I
Yeah.
always just thought about my own universe, my own world, and just what I knew about Black women. And And I was like, oh, I doesn't believe that. But
We are
so you kind of,
watching, we are reading, we are
yeah, like, yeah, you're the,
supporting.
and like the consumer statistics of it like prove it. Like we are like, it's not like we're just saying this, like we're like, we
Yes.
really are like the, you know, the highest educated, the highest entrepreneurial, like that we like, it's there. It's not like the numbers
Yes.
actually speak for themselves, but people would make you believe, you know, the opposite. And
Mhm.
so I think that, yeah, like all of those things kind of inspired my path. And so after a while, you know, as cliche as it is when you're dealing with creatives, you know, that cliche saying of just like, just do it, just like, just start. That's the truth. That's the only way you kind of figure out who you are and like what it is that you kind of like to do and all of those things, good and bad, which is why I'm like, you don't know you're a producer until you produce.
Yeah.
And you don't know, you know, like you have to do it. Like you just have to kind
Yeah.
of do it. And even in that, then you can start to be specific, like really specific in your storytelling or what matters to you. But I think that's hard for people to do. I think we're not as encouraged to just like fine tune ourselves,
Mm.
to like
Mm, yeah.
really like know yourself and be comfortable in your niche.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I use that word, but I don't even know if I believe in the concept of a niche or if I just look at it as like you're just being yourself. You're just doing
Yeah.
the thing you would do. And so I think that's like the long answer of kind of saying like, yeah, the way I became who I am now was being fortunate enough to be in the business very early,
Yeah.
but then also constantly searching for ways to be myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say one thing that I noted just looking over your whole career, you're very good at just transitioning into like what is happening now
Mm-hmm.
and how can I create in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just a top tier skill as a creator.
Mm-hmm.
And just having a pulse on, you know, how people want to feel,
Mm-hmm.
how you can connect your story
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the wider audience. Okay. I don't know if, Black actress, I was watching Black actress and I was just falling in love with the story, with you, with the characters. Um, and I was just thinking this morning, like, there are so many creators. I think about like Awkward Black
Mm-hmm.
Girl, the quirky Black girls, that
Mm-hmm.
whole era just gave so many Black women permission to like be themselves. And I
Yeah,
think like your show was another one that like, gave us permission to be ourselves, gave us
yeah.
permission to show up and be seen. And it's okay for us to be centered,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, even if you're not fitting like a cookie cutter persona. And that's something that like I know I personally struggled with because I was always like, I always felt like a bit nerdy and
Yeah.
always
Yeah,
into like
just trying to like find who you
writing.
are. And I think that's because for so long we didn't have enough versions of like representation in that way, or Black women were not made to feel like you were allowed to be something else, you
Yeah.
know, like young Black women, at least in my experience. I just think of like, I always tell people, I'm like, I grew up in the suburbs. I'm like truly a suburban Black girl. And like for the longest time, I don't think I could think of what that was. Like, you know, what that meant, like what that looked like kind of thing. And I think now, like when I look at TikTok or when I look at like online anything, you'll see just that concept like
Yeah.
all the time, like the suburban Black girls. I'm like, yeah, that was me. But for a long time, people didn't let you define that, or they made you feel
Mm.
like that should be hidden, or like there was no diversity within Blackness.
And
And it
so
is.
the tools have caught up so
Yeah.
that we can now capture our lives and our experiences. I
Yeah.
feel like back in the day, like you had to rely on, some producer or some studio or some publishing house or somebody else the powers that be to um say, okay, your story is okay.
Yeah.
And now we're like, psh.
Yeah, well, that was kind of the blessing in the sense, like I said, again, about social media, because a lot of Black creatives turned to the internet simply because the studios, the money essentially was basically being like, we're not going to greenlight these stories.
Mm,
And we as a community knew that these stories matter, knew that there's so many diverse voices, there's so many ways to tell our stories, there's so many perspectives. But it gets frustrating when you have to kind of prove your worth to people who don't care about your community. And, and I mean, I'm like that across on anything. Like, whether it's for women, whether it's for Black women, whether it's for millennial women, like, if as soon as I have to feel like I have to like prove it to a group of
mm,
people who don't actually reflect the community that I'm telling the story about, then
yeah.
I'm usually like, okay, I don't have to do this, because I just I don't believe in that feeling, or even that
Mm-hmm.
vibe, that energy. And
Same.
I just kind of think there's so many ways to tell our stories. And ultimately, what we're all looking for, though, is just exposure, right? Just like, we want to be able to tell our stories on the highest platform. We want the largest audience to be able to see our stuff. But I think there's also real power in just like the community that you're telling it for, even if it's not, even if it doesn't end up being for a lot of people, but just building that community um, matters just as
Just because
much.
it's not like a huge population, which, like we just discussed before, like it's way underestimated and way
Mm-hmm.
downplayed, like
Yeah.
the audience that like Black women and women of color like play into like so many things.
Yeah.
Um, but just because it may seem niche does not mean that you're not going to be impacting like tons of people.
So many people.
And, and we also, I think sometimes people don't understand why the emphasis on like empowering Black women. I think about like generations to come. I think
Mm-hmm.
about my legacy and the legacy of my ancestors before me.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much like richness and just like those who get it. Okay.
Exactly. The girls that get it, get it. Exactly. So yeah, I understand you, because it's true. It's just like, yeah, all the work, that everybody's work matters. And I think um that's what people kind of forget, is like the little things is what kind of ends up creating kind of uh this big ball, like there used to be this magazine like back in the day called Suede. There was only like 4
Remember.
copies. Yeah, like it didn't last, but
For some
I
reason,
always,
I remember I
yeah,
like
because it was like big. It had these vibrant covers. There's only 4 of them, but I always use it as a reference, because I'm like, the girls that get it, because it was small. It was small in the landscape, right? It was literally targeting Black millennial girls in like the early 2000s, but they only had 4 issues. However, it really made such an impact on the women that saw it,
mhm.
because you meet beauty editors that know about it. I meet influencers that know about it. I meet so many women that when you bring it up, they're like, oh my gosh, yes, I know what you're talking about. Da, da, da.
Yes.
But at the time, somebody would have made them, Essence Magazine is who was doing it, and probably even the audience that was buying it, feel like, oh, it's not impactful. It's not getting enough reach. It's not doing all of these things. But I think Black women, women of color, but definitely Black women, have had this unique space where, because we've had such a lack of proper representation for ourselves, the few things that we've been able to see have made like gigantic impact on all of us.
Mhm.
And it's inspired a generation to then say, I can do something else. I can widen the door just a little bit more. And I think we think about it in this way, where we're like, yeah, do this work right now, because the girls that are to come are going to be even more inspired by the work
Oh,
that you've done. And
yes.
I think that's just kind of ancestral within
Because we're
us, that
pushing forward. People don't
yeah.
understand you there. You can't stand still,
Hmm.
and expect things to change or
Yeah.
even like say the way they are. And we
Yeah.
see that like it only takes a look at the news to see like, these quote unquote like bans on critical race theory,
Yeah.
banning books by, Black and POC authors. Like
Yeah.
it's happening in real
Yeah.
life, people trying to erase our representation.
Absolutely.
And so, okay, we're
Yeah.
going to create.
Yeah. No, I think that's why it's important, or it's just important to, um, it's important to lean into your story, whatever your story is, like just whatever your thing is, which is why like I always bring everything back to like self-awareness, just like knowing who you are and then doing whatever that means, like whatever you know yourself to be, like now tell that story, because everybody's will look different. Not everyone's gonna do a web series. Some people are gonna write a book, some people are gonna do a blog, some people are gonna do something directly in their community, but everybody's gonna do something that um really reflects who you are. And I think doing that type of work is the definition of self-love. Like it's more revolutionary than people realize. It's more impactful than somebody realizes, but it starts with us really knowing self, like really saying like
Mhm.
I know exactly
Ooh,
who I am. So then you
that's a
almost,
journey.
yeah, it's a real
Yeah.
journey, it's a super journey, but I think at the same time, once you kind of do that work, you start to unravel something that that can't really be stopped. It's like within you. It's like I always tell people, I'm like, if you have an idea that keeps just, it's like sitting on your shoulder, it's like will not come out of your head. Like, and in any moment, it just kind of like boom, it's there, just in the forefront, just tapping you. Then you have to do that idea. It's
Yeah.
like as crazy as the idea may be, it could be gigantic, but you just have to do it.
Mhm.
It's sitting in you for a reason, because you're like, yeah, I'm like, I have friends that are actresses or creatives, but none of us have the same dreams. We none of us are thinking about the thing in the same way.
Yeah.
Even when we tell a story to each other, we're not picturing it in the same way. So that's why I'm like, if your ideas are unique to you, and so they're important for you to do, but it starts truly to me in a place of like, yeah, like wanting to know yourself
Yeah.
deeper than anybody else can know it. So that way too, when you meet the people who are rejecting you, when you meet the people who don't get your idea, when you meet the people who don't really like it, none of it matters. It genuinely doesn't
Can I
matter.
just interject? First of all, you've said several things that I'm like, ooh, this just hit me. The whole Suede magazine recollection and just how much of an impact you can make, like just even in 5 issues, making a
Yeah.
huge impact. And we're on our fifth at Spoken Black Girl right now. So I'm like,
Yeah.
that hit me. And it also struck me, I was watching The Black Beauty Effect.
Mhm.
Um, and the part where the founder of the Lip Bar
Mhm.
was talking about, bouncing back after that Shark Tank rejection. And I hadn't seen the clip from the Shark Tank for a little while.
Yeah.
I probably saw it a couple of years ago, but I hadn't seen it in a while. And I was like, that was rough.
Crazy. Yeah. Just
And
crazy.
definitely kind of massage noir in
Oh,
there and the
absolutely.
whole
Absolutely.
thing.
Yeah.
And but I loved her response where she was just like, I know who I am, like, and I
Yeah.
was just like, this person's not my audience. Um, like, but once you have that knowledge of self and
Mhm.
that, like, that certainty, you're like, okay, this didn't hit the right target, but you
Yeah.
thought you were gonna embarrass me, but I know myself. And
Hmm.
I feel that's something that so many creatives are searching for, that certainty.
Yeah.
It takes time. It takes, going through the ups and downs and
Oh,
then not
absolutely.
letting the downs keep you down.
Yeah.
Which is, something that like I've experienced and I
Mhm.
try to help people through as well because we have to we have to look out for each other,
Yeah.
especially the creatives, because it's so easy to let that self-expression kind of like go in the back seat and life starts lifing. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, no, I think yeah, it's as you said, it's kind of like uh, rejection happens the whole time, and it can happen on micro levels, it can happen on macro levels, but it happens the whole time. And so if you were to kind of let every little thing affect you, I think you would yeah, you wouldn't get anywhere, to be honest with you. You really wouldn't do this. And it's important to have discernment, to know when somebody is kind of giving you a critique that can help, when somebody is giving you, when somebody's just straight up being a hater, when somebody is projecting their fear onto you, when somebody just doesn't get it, period. They don't
Mhm.
get it. And I also think even breaking that down, there's a few kinds of not getting it. Do they not get it because my explanation was crazy? My explanation is actually not as solid as I
Mhm.
think it needs to be. Can I learn in this experience? Or do they not get it because they're just not the audience? Like, which
Because they
one?
didn't want to
I
get it.
yeah, like I think the discernment is really key, like really starting to learn like what is supposed to help me here. I always give the advice of like when you're meeting, when you're having like pitch meetings or something like that, or just meeting with somebody you hope to be a mentor, or you just hope they help you in some capacity. Go into it open-minded with the idea more so that you will just gain something here. You don't know what it's going to be, but you're going to
Mhm.
gain something. You may gain a tip, you may gain an understanding, you may gain, but something will be a little bit more clear. And that's simply because, yeah, there are times when I have dealt with a creative who's told me an idea and it was all over the place. I didn't
Yeah.
understand it. But that doesn't mean it's not good. That
Yeah.
just means they themselves as the creative have to learn, okay, I actually need this to be a little bit more concise. I need this to be a little bit more to the point.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to give them a big long backstory before I tell them the idea, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so I think, yeah, when you are an entrepreneur, when you're a creative, you start to grow that skin in
Yeah.
that way. And so that experience with Melissa, and Melissa, I was fortunate enough to meet in like 2012, uh, and
Yes.
so it's like, yeah, I've known it for so long, and so I remember when that happened because Melissa and Roscoe, who's the creative director for Lip Bar and Thread Beauty, and is one of my best friends. It was like I remember them practicing, and they were going to LA, and there was this whole thing, and so to have that experience was really, really hurtful. The words were hurtful,
Oh yes. I
but as
remember
she
it like
said,
watching.
yeah, it was like crazy. She came out of it though, realizing as much as that hurt, this person is not our audience.
Yeah.
And the audience that it was for, they were so affected by that episode that it like blew up after
Yeah.
that. Like it literally changed the brand after that. So it shows you that even in your rejection,
Yeah.
not to be like that, but you're like, yeah, even in your rejection, you're still getting protection because you're like, literally, though you are being embarrassed on TV, to you, you're being embarrassed. The right people were watching. The right people were like,
Mhm.
wait a second, like, what am I seeing here?
And
And
it
I'm going to help them.
fueled them to be
Yeah,
like,
it
I'm gonna go
literally
find
did.
this brand, buy this
Yes.
brand,
And how
like
can I
blow up
help
this
them
brand
as
as much
much
as
as
I can.
possible? Yeah. It was yeah, I think there's so much to learn from entrepreneurs, especially Black female entrepreneurs, because um our tenacity is like no other. And so we already have a thick skin because we experience rejection on so many levels within our lives. So when we're now pursuing something that we know already is difficult, it takes a lot to kind of bump us off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so yeah, that story, everybody loves it, and it shocks me every time because I remember when this was happening because I know them like that, but so many people had not seen that clip, didn't know that he said that, didn't know. So they were like, every time with like, if we've done a screening and we show it, it shocks people every single time, which fascinates me. So yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, everything that you said, like sometimes you're put into a situation and, you know, the benefit is there, but it may not feel like that at the time. Um, so since we are so big on wellness and mental health, can you tell us, like, it's the new year.
Mhm.
What are some things that you have incorporated like into your self-care routine um
Um,
that you could
hmm.
share? Especially as
Well,
creative, I will say, like,
yeah. I'm big on the cliche ones, like I'm like go to therapy, definitely journal. Um, don't pressure yourself though with your journaling. I've been seeing a lot of that conversation online these days of like that people who are like, oh, journaling's not working for me. And people are like, that's because you're writing it like it's going to be graded. Like
Mhm.
you're not like being just like free with you're not like having a moment for yourself. I think about a lot of that. I've been, um, I do a lot of walks in general, but I've been doing a lot of running lately. And um, it's like you realize just how much you need a physical activity, especially one, and not to knock like any of the like high intensity stuff, but just something that's like you and your thoughts.
Mm.
As weird as that sounds, only because
Oh
I'm like,
no.
I,
Yeah, I
yeah, I think it's like
identify.
something in the process I find of like a long walk or even a long run or like a jog, whatever that may be. You just get to kind of process things a little
Yeah.
bit. Like your body is moving. So like naturally it's creating dopamine and I think you're just processing stuff. But also I'm like, I don't know. I'm like the energy to me of this year going into 2024, I think is ease, just real ease. I
Mm.
feel like, yeah, like I just wanted to remove pressure from myself of like I have to do this right and I have to do this and I no more of this thing and no more of that thing. I'm like,
Mhm.
no, I really want like from a mental standpoint to just trust my intuition. My intuition doesn't have to explain it to me. Just trust my intuition.
Yeah.
If it's a no, it's a no. And if it's I'm not feeling it, I'm just not feeling it. And I don't have to explain it. I don't have to do much. I just have to ease my way in. And so just like what you're saying kind of in the beginning, it's January 3rd, but in many ways, I'm like, I keep thinking, I'm like, when do I think my year was really starting? I don't know, February, maybe March. Because I'm like, I'm like,
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
either you do a mad dash into the new year, or there are people who are like, I'm not even like taking any emails or anything this week. I'm still easing into the new year. And I'm like,
absolutely.
I love that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. It's like I do think I've been treating this week like that, or even next week, I think I'll probably treat like that, where I'm like, I, I think everybody's just kind of defrosting, maybe
Something
is
like that.
is the best thing to say, waking up from their slumber, only because I'm like, typically from an actor standpoint, I never think the year really starts for me until after Sundance.
Mm.
So once that's basically the end of January. So you'll see things kind of pick up within February. Pilot season typically, at least it's changed now, but it used to be very much like February, March, April. That was pilot season. So yeah, your year would kind of just like ease in.
Mhm.
And but yeah, for me these days, what's been really important from a mental health standpoint is just trusting my general energy. If my energy says to move slow, don't feel bad. Don't feel like, oh my God, I've got to be going crazy. I'm not moving fast enough. Um, I'm moving exactly as I need to be moving. So
Yes.
yeah.
I love that. I love that. I'm trying to embody some of the same things. I was just saying, like, just trusting the process. Okay, I'm gonna go
Mhm.
ahead and do what I need to do and just trust that I am supported, trust that, everything is working in my favor and I can rest. I feel
Yeah.
like that's something that unfortunately, Black women, we often need to remind ourselves, like, it's okay to rest. It's okay to put this down. You don't have to finish it all today. You don't have
Yeah.
to, work into the night just because you
Yeah.
didn't finish it.
No, completely. Yeah. Like that you can, yeah, you can You can set your own pace. If you want to go really fast, go fast. But if you want to
Hmm.
go slow too, and not beat yourself up about
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And I always just think, I'm like, if you're still moving in the direction of your dreams, you will get there, no matter the speed.
Yeah.
It's just about the movement. Like,
Hmm. And
there's
it's like,
nothing that states that one step is bad. Like, just
yeah.
do one step if that's all you have.
And
Yeah.
all of the like fear and anxiety around that,
Mhm.
when you look back, you're like, what was I even like so stressed about? Because it was gonna happen the way it was gonna happen.
Yeah, it really does. I think that's the thing, is like I said, where it's like you have to just kind of trust your journey now, and trust your intuition, trust who you are, because if there's one thing that I've learned and realized, is I'm like, I'm always okay. I'm more than okay in the end. And I always get to where I need to go. I always meet the people I need to meet. I always make the thing I want to make. I always do the thing. And so even in my times of self-doubt, my times of worry, or like just how, as long as I keep moving, I will get
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
so, and I realize, yeah, like I said, I'm like, I realize in doing a run, even if I slow down and I decide to walk, I still get my miles. Like, it still
Yes.
happens. So it's, yeah, it's kind of thinking about that, and also knowing that as a creative, a large part of the work that we do is mental.
Yeah.
Just having a
Oh
healthy
yeah.
mind to think of ideas, to think of the things you want to do, to think, to problem solve, because that's all we're doing is constant problem solving. um yeah, I think as long as you know that your mind needs to be prioritized, like your body, like your networking, like your social media, then you should trust your intuition, and trust your movement, is what I'll say.
I love that because it just kind of captures everything I've been like working on for so long, in that, we think about what's this link between mental health and like being a creative, because, you know, over the years, I mean, we've seen creatives go through it in all kinds of different ways. And like I've been through it, I've seen, how mental health can really impact us.
Hmm.
And I love the idea of like just, have a healthy mind to create with, because
Yeah.
that is our main vehicle.
Hmm.
That is our instrument
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
paint with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you so much for this time. I had like, um, a couple more questions. So, one thing last year that we worked on in Spoken Black Girl, we worked with an author that wrote a book called Black Women, Black Love.
Hmm.
What is your recommendation to Black women seeking love?
Oh my goodness. Seeking love. Seeking romantic love, or platonic love, or
Yes,
just any love?
romantic love.
Seeking romantic love. Um, I think it boils back down to everything we kind of been talking about. I think it's really important to know how you receive love, what love
Mm,
looks like for you, and having a very clear definition of that, very clear understanding on that, so that you know what it looks like when it arrives. I think
mm,
sometimes we have no idea. So, which is why you can kind of meet the bad partners, or so you're kind of taking on anything. Oh, he called me, or he showed me this, or he showed me that, or he did, and in reality, maybe those aren't the things that look like love for you. And then
mhm,
you get frustrated because you're in the relationship with the person, and you realize, wait a second, they're not doing any of the things that I actually need or want or find to make me feel really great. But they're doing some other stuff. Nothing's wrong with what they're doing, but it's just not what feeds me. And so I think defining for yourself what love looks like for you, what love would feel like for you,
yeah.
really envisioning, like, when I receive this love, this is how I will feel.
Mm,
um, and then start to date, because then I think you'll really know. You'll know like, oh, this feels okay, but it doesn't feel like what I think love feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll navigate those waters just as sharply as you navigate your career, as you navigate your physical health, your mental health, all of those things. And so yeah, I think it goes back down again to like really defining these things for yourself, because you may not be the gifts girl. It might not really matter to you if they buy you the designer bag, but but you might really take it on if he takes you to a play, or if he like reads through this book that you're reading. Like, it's stuff
Yeah.
like that may be what you look for in love, and you may be going after partners that are completely not doing that, just because you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
trying to keep up with the Joneses of it all. And so I always think it's important to really know, like, for you, not for your homegirls, not for your family, but for you, what does love look
Yeah.
like and feel like? Because I realize in the space of love, oftentimes we're taking on the opinions of others. We're so worried about the opinion of somebody else as well, like you
Mm-hmm.
you have a partner that you really like, but you're too afraid to introduce them to your family.
Red flag.
Like, yeah, it's like, well, why? It's like, but also understanding, like, is this person dating your family, or are they dating you? Or is that a big thing for you? Like, if just blending into your family looks like love, whatever it may be. But I think in the searching for love, quote unquote, is really in searching for love of self, and knowing very well, like, this is what love feels like for me. So then when it shows up, it'll just feel like a puzzle piece. It'll be like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I've been looking for this the whole
You'll
time.
recognize it.
Yeah, you'll recognize it
Can't recognize what
instantly.
you don't define. Yeah.
Yeah, you really can't. And I think the more you kind of navigate these spaces, and sometimes look at it as an experiment. If you really don't know what your ideal first date is, go out on a bunch of first dates. Just go out. Just do a whole ton. Bad dates, good dates, do them all. Just so you can decide, oh, I really liked it when they did this, or when they didn't do this, or
Mm-hmm.
I always say to people, I'm like, I'm not a doors girl, as in, like, if you don't open all the doors for me, I actually don't notice. Like, I am not noticing, because I'm probably walking ahead of you
Oh my gosh.
and I've probably got the door. Like, and that's just because I'm just that kind of girl. I'm moving really quickly. And so I never notice if I have a friend that is very Southern, and he opens all the doors for all of us whenever we're out. And I'm always already at the door. I'm like, I can get in the car. I'm cool. I'm in. I'm already in. You don't got to open this for me. But I know that, yes, if I had a man that kind of did those kinds of things, cute, sweet, all of that kind of stuff. But is
Hmm.
that the thing that's going to impress me
Yeah.
into having him? Absolutely.
Everyone's different. Everyone's
Yeah.
different
And
things.
and that doesn't mean that I don't like chivalry. It just means that there's parts of chivalry. I'm sorry, I'm zoned out. I'm not even seeing.
Not necessary for you,
Yeah.
okay? You got your own doors,
Exactly.
obviously, okay?
Yeah.
Um, um, okay. So I want to talk about the future and um so creatively, just with ease in mind,
Mhm.
are there any projects on the horizon, anything you're excited about?
I'm honestly excited about every project. I'm like, I have too many projects, but I'm excited about all of them. That's the truth. It's like, um, I'm an ideas girl. So I have a lot of projects. This year, I've finally decided to kind of put them in in an order, so that I don't overwhelm myself, but more so in a, like, hey, this doesn't need any of your attention until this.
Hmm.
This only needs this amount of your attention. This, you can distribute the responsibilities on this one to somebody else. You can, and I think sometimes when you're a creative, you could have a lot of ideas, and it will be like, well, which one do I start? Where do I pick? Where do I go? And some of them can be simultaneously being worked on. Others, just put them to the side. But nonetheless, I'm like, yeah, all of my ideas this year, I'm very excited about, but they are technically ideas I've been working on for years.
Yeah.
So nothing is new necessarily, but they might be new in the energy, or I'm adding a person, or
Mhm.
partnering with somebody now, or, things like
Well,
that.
tell us, name names. What can we look for?
I see, that's what I can't do. Because I'm
Okay.
like, you know what? That's actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, this is one of my new rules. I'm like, you'll see it when you see it. Yeah.
That's and you know what? That's the truth.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's coming. It's like, I've already got the track record of
Trust and
proving that stuff is
believe.
coming.
We trust and believe.
Yeah, so
Okay.
like, it's coming.
And I will be continuing to follow your journey, support your journey, and share all of the awesome things that you do. Thank you for just bringing such a beautiful energy to like everywhere that you show up.
Thank you.
Seriously, it's rare, it's a treasure, it's a beautiful thing. And you shared some really great advice with us on like how we can protect our energy as creatives. And yes, I'm wishing you just such a beautiful new year and a
Thank
powerful new
you.
year. Um, yeah, thank you for joining
Thank
me.
you. Thanks for the time. Thank you. Thank you.
I
So
I
yeah.
honestly like I'm I feel like this is my first blessing of the new year, one of my first blessings of the new year.
Mhm.
Um, and I know I've said it before, but I want to thank you for me and for all Black women and girls that have ever seen themselves in any of the, projects that you have acted in or produced or just been a part of. Because it's like if it weren't for like people like you, I don't think that I would even be here interviewing you
Oh,
because
no.
like seriously.
I'm like, somebody would tap you on your shoulder. There would be an ancestor that would be like, hey, there's
But that's
something for
you,
this
like
lady.
that's you
Yeah.
though. It's awesome.
You know what I mean? I think that. I believe that. So yeah. But
Keep
thank you
going.
for the
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you for the kind
Yeah,
words. I appreciate it. This is my first blessing of the new year too. This is great. Thank you.
I'm here for it.
Thank you.